Hi folks, Crystal Cox here of Obsidian Finance Group versus Crystal Cox. I know a lot of folks are out there emailing me questions and Googling my case all the time. I get interviews from colleges quite often, and I get people asking me if I will come and speak at their college or talk to their class, and I haven't really done any of this so far because I've just been so swamped with everything I've been doing. But I want to talk to you guys about some of the common questions that people ask me and educate you basically about the law. Those of you in law school or going to school to be journalists and asking me all these questions about media law and doing these articles about my case, I just want to tell you what I would want you to know, okay? So I'm going to do a few videos on this topic, and this one will just kind of be an overview. But people don't really understand what it is that I was doing. First of all, I could get a DBA and start a newspaper in any town in the United States any day. Okay, it's just a matter of having a certain amount of money and talking to the Secretary of State, getting doing business ads, get a checking account, get the money to get a printer, and you're done. Okay, the internet is a way better form of news and media, and people speaking on the internet are really more journalists really than traditional journalists these days. If you have a story that you've heard, for example, from the AP Press, and you're broadcasting it everywhere, or you're answering to an editor or a corporate news, how is that independent, right? You're getting paid to write the news, you're getting judged on what you write, you're not allowed to completely be free, you're not allowed to put in all the facts and link to documents of proof. There's politics, there's money, there's a boss, there's all kinds of things. So these forms of news are not really independent forms of news. So of course they want to shut you down. So when you look at the law, like for example, those of you out there going to law school now, the law is absolutely irrelevant, okay? You could bring, I've seen, and this is, if you check out the Lawless America stories, you check out some of the stories that I've written about over the last 7 years, and a lot of these folks bring in stacks and stacks of proof, right, of their side of the story. But if you don't do it in the right, proper procedure and follow the rules and play the game, then the truth is irrelevant, okay? The laws are there, but corrupt judges, corrupt politicians, big money really does play a factor in this. And you really want to think that, oh, well, they must not approve their case or whatever. Well, no, the courts are not like that. The people that give their opinion are paid to be on the stand. The judges, most of the time, have some sort of a motive. If you want to research, last winter I filed a whole bunch of legal cases, and you can research the judges' opinions on all of those. Basically, those judges talked to the attorneys involved, even though there was no attorneys that had joined the case. They all talked to each other, and they all put out the point of view that they want known of me. Okay? They're not based on facts. So what you folks need to know about the law that you're learning in law school is that all of your memorization and the briefs and everything you write are completely irrelevant when it comes to corruption, okay? The power of a small town sheriff, the power of a county attorney, okay? They go completely against all of the laws, but as long as they do it united, they just keep coming. So you are learning about the law, and that's wonderful, and I'm sure you're just really gung-ho and excited to get out there in the world and to be a lawyer. The thing is that the system is broken, okay? So you can't expect to go to court with the truth and win, okay? You have to have the proper procedure, you have to know the right people. It's all about, and a lot of times these judges are just voted in, right? They don't even necessarily have a law degree. So it's their opinion and who they know, and if they've been in an area for like 30 years, it's just not based on law. So a lot of these questions that the media law folks are asking me, there's something way bigger, okay? It's not just whether or not the Shield Law applied to me and retraction laws and the First Amendment. Of course they should have applied to me. I mean, it's pretty much a no-brainer that the Oregon retraction law should have applied to me, all right? I was a Montana resident. There was over 100 victims in several different states. It probably shouldn't have been just Oregon law that applied, but certainly the Oregon retraction law should have applied. It's common sense that before you sue someone for $10 million, you ask them to remove what they've written about you, okay? They didn't ask me to even remove it. They didn't even tell me what post they were suing me on, okay? You can pretty much see that there's something fishy going on from the start, okay? Now, the shield law, okay, well, that's a little iffy. So they say I couldn't use the shield law. I'll make sure this is still recording. I couldn't use the shield law to protect my source because I was not, traditional media. I was never trying to protect my source, okay? The folks that sued me had deposed one of my sources 3 years before and knew exactly why I was writing on the case. I was reporting on the story that she had a blog about, okay? And I interviewed people within her blog, investors, creditors, insiders. I seen emails between the Department of Justice trustee, people involved, emails between creditors. I read the Umpqua lawsuit case. I read every traditional news story that was out there about it. I read hearings. I watched videos of Kevin Patrick, the bankruptcy trustee's own words. I read contracts where Obsidian Finance Group, Kevin Patrick represented this company, Summit, to help them restructure, then jumped the fence and worked completely against them after they took $100,000 of their money and was the trustee in the bankruptcy case on the other side of them. Which in my opinion still is my opinion that this violates bankruptcy law, okay? I'm not a bankruptcy attorney. This is just my opinion, okay? And it's still my opinion to this day, and we're now in, in November 2013. So anyway, kind of lost my train of thought there a little bit, but basically there was 3 years that had passed and they knew where the information came from. So I wasn't trying to protect my source. Now, they had to prove that what I was saying was false, which they never really did, in my opinion. I don't see where they did. So it's up to them to bring in all this proof, right? But instead they wanted me to give hundreds and hundreds of emails. They wanted all of my phone records. They wanted everything from friends and family, anything to do with money, anything to do with anything, and my other businesses, all to prove that this blog post wasn't true. It was irrelevant, right? So I said, under the shield law, I do not have to provide all of these because I'm media, right? Not because I was protecting my source, okay? Everybody knew who my source was. It's out there everywhere, and it had been for 3 years before they sued me. Okay, so now the shield law, there's some about the shield law. The retraction law certainly should have applied, as we've just talked about, and the First Amendment applies to everybody, right? Everybody's out there hating and throwing these huge fits and marching, and the First Amendment applies to them all, but it doesn't apply to me because one Portland, Oregon judge doesn't like my ethics and standards, and he alluded to the fact that possibly I'm a criminal, but yet none of these attorneys or judges had the balls to file a criminal complaint against me so that I could have due process, okay? It's pretty easy to see that I was not extorting anybody. But Forbes, the Fox News, New York Times, a whole bunch of other blogs out there in media paint me out to be a criminal. Well, it was a civil trial. I was never under investigation for a crime. I wasn't convicted of a crime. But yet, that's what the judge alluded to. Okay, so all of these were reasons why the First Amendment doesn't apply to me. Well, no matter what crime I may or may not have committed, first of all, like say I robbed a convenience store, right? They have to charge me with that robbery, let me have an attorney, let me go through due process, right? Then if I'm convicted of robbing a convenience store, does that mean the First Amendment doesn't apply to me, or does that mean I can't be a journalist? What if I have a day job as a journalist and I rob stores at night? Am I not a journalist because I'm a criminal? I mean, it's all just messed up, and so anybody that wants to look at the facts can see that. So those of you trying to ask me about media law, it's really hard to separate out corruption from law. Okay, they offered me 15 outs. I kept it going because this precedence is huge for people who are whistleblowers and citizen journalists, people trying to expose corruption out there. So I wanted this to keep going. So it's a huge difference. When you're dealing with corruption, the law is irrelevant. The truth is criminal. Okay? When you're dealing with it in the way that Eugene Volokh is in the appeal, it's strictly on intellectual and it's based on law, and it's really, really cool because you have SCOTUSblog.com, you have the EFF, and you have the Reporters Committee for Free Press, all these amicuses, and you have the briefs of Eugene Volokh. And you can see the intellectual part of this, and that's really cool when you're looking at it at law and why a blogger doesn't apply and does a blogger apply. But then you have the judges who are connected to corruption, who are connected to, Gordon Smith, Senator Gordon Smith. You have these power players like Judge Marco Hernandez, and check out www.obsidianfinancedocs.com or email me, SAVVY broker @yahoo.com, or crystal@crystalcox.com. And I give many emails because they shut down my sites at various times. But you can see where there's a whole bunch of elite electric companies, Oregon solar tax credits, senators, ex-senators, just a huge amount of money and players involved in this, and all connected to Judge Marco Hernandez, the Umpqua Bank, Perkins Coie Law Firm, Miller Nash Law Firm, Tonkintorp. And so all of these connections are what interprets the law to shut me up, okay? You folks in school are going, this is a really cool case, this is exciting, and I want to study it, you know, based on law, and I want to write this cool story about it. So you're trying to look at it intellectually and based on law in your books and your briefs. And that's okay. That's a wonderful way to look at it, and you should do that to press forward. But just know that once you enter the real world, all of this intellectual stuff is irrelevant, okay? You have to muddle around in the corruption in order to get anywhere, okay? Because it doesn't matter how much scholarly information you have and you bring to the table. Basically, corruption decides whether or not this case will go this direction or that direction, okay? Anyway, we will talk a lot more about that, and crystalcoxcase.com has more information on my case. You can email me for questions. My phone number is 406-624-9510 if you want to call me for an interview. If you want to hire me to do a talk at your school or to do a video talk or a video chat or anything, you can also email me about paying me for my time to give you some sort of a lecture or talk to your class, or just to kind of visit with you long term. I'm now charging for this. People have asked me over the last 2 years many times if I would do that, and I haven't. I've given a lot of interviews for free, and I still will. But if you want to have like a lecture or talk about some of these issues on this other level, I am going to now start accepting paying gigs because, you know, I'm looking for a way to survive in this world and be able to eat. I'm currently penniless. I currently have no income, and I am living in church housing. So I really could use a way to help you folks and to also help me survive. Anyway, I hope you're doing great out there, and it's nice talking to you. Bye-bye.